Hey, hey, good evening, everybody, and welcome to episode 13 of Once Upon a Game, where we're playing Fall of Magic, a game by Ross Cowman. Hey, and
Who apparently lives in a hippie commune and makes games.
yes, Ross is a really cool designer who lives in Olympia, and apparently there's a bunch of like really crazy LARPs, and like really interesting takes on games that are coming out of Olympia. Um, Sort of in like the Nordic LARP kind of ideas. So, anyways, that's not what this game is about. So, this game that we're gonna play today is kind of like a fantasy epic tale about how magic is dying, and we're all going to be playing people who are escorting the last person who knows magic to the magical land of Umbra. So, it's gonna feel kind of like a movie, almost, or like our start of a really good book. We'll probably not get through the entire game today, but yeah, it will feel like a really, really good like book one of a series that just never gets finished. So, Once Upon a Game is a story game variety show. Um, we've done tons of different games together with just various people from the audience and my friends. And this one is what episode did I say it was? 13? Yeah, 13. And I guess the three people I brought with me, or actually, before, if anyone doesn't know who I am, if you're a first time viewer, I'm Eric, and I'm sort of the host and usually facilitator of the games, which means that I've read the rules, but it doesn't give me any particularly more power over the games. So that's me. You can find me here at Twitch and Twitters and YouTube's at Eric Fulgaris. And let's look at the cast today. So, first, Nick.
Hello, I'm Nick Willett. I occasionally do internet things. Some people like them for unknown reasons. I have humor, and I make games, or I try to. None of them have been published yet. You can find me at Nikonon2, and I will probably have a website eventually, but not yet because lays and whatnot. Apps are important, man.
Yeah. Cool. Robert.
Hey, I'm Robert. I'm at Demosthenes everywhere, spelled in a funny way. I also try to make games. None of them have been published as well. I do some things online, and that's about it.
Awesome. And last but not least, not least.
Good. Yeah, thanks. I am Leafington, but my real name is Paul, because everyone mispronounces Leafington the first time, so I tell them to just call me Paul. And if you follow me on Twitter, then sometimes you'll see drawings I do with my mouse and my poor art skills.
Oh, they're not poor at all. They're awesome.
Getting better every day.
So.
Well, you know, there's many really, really talented people out there.
And
Like
happen to
you.
be one of them.
Yeah. And that set contains you.
Alright. Well,
yeah. So, let's get to the Fall of Magic. We'll be playing this game for 3 hours or so, and then we're gonna do a little post-mortem about it. With about an hour break in between. Or excuse me, a 5-minute break every hour.
Woo,
just for
hour
us to
break.
go to the bathroom. Yeah, hour break would be insane. So, the rules for the game begin with us reading aloud the following texts. So, Fall of Magic is like a conversation. A good game session should give you that feeling of excitement and a connection like a good conversation would. And all those same rules about being a good conversationalist apply. You should listen, you should ask questions, and you should bear witness to things that inspire your fellow players and let us know what inspires you.
I lost where we are on the rules. Someone pick up.
Nick, at Think Small on page 3.
Oh, wait. Think small. Okay. Sorry. When it is time to make something up, think small and don't plan too far ahead. Let the story be a wondrous beast we chase but never capture. Ask questions with no clear answer. Raise conflicts with no ready solution. By letting go, the story we find together will be more profound than anything you might have planned alone.
So, social fantasy, Fall of Magic, is social because play centers around characters, relationships, and exploration of culture. It is fantasy because things are possible that are not possible in our daily lives. This world will come to life if we treat the characters like they were alive, make them diverse, nuanced, and sometimes contradictory. Use this space to reimagine and explore without the restrictions and stereotypes around race, class, and gender that we experience outside of the game.
Safety first. Your emotional safety is more important than any game. So if something comes up in the story or at the table that makes you feel uncomfortable or is ruining your fun, let us know. We can change that detail, fade to black, take a break if needed. Likewise, check in with your fellow players before introducing an element to the story that you know may be difficult or triggering.
Yes, and so if there's any issues or anything like that, please, guys, bring it up, because I know it's written here in the rules, but more than any game, one of the probably the biggest thing that we do at Once Upon a Game is provide a safe one-shot environment for you to speak your mind. So if that ends up hampering or being like, difficult or problematic for someone else, you know, we should look out for one another, and so just let us know, or like do like a little X card kind of thing, and we'll strike it from the game. No questions asked. So let's go to the setup part of the game. The beautiful map. So, magic is dying, and the Magus is dying with it. We travel together to the realm of Umbra, where magic was born. So now, at this point, we're each going to take turns and choose a name from the options listed on the map. And each character should have a different name. So, since I read the beginning part, I don't want to go first.
All right. Let me see. I'm thinking Vago, the giant from Mistwood.
Ooh.
So, name is Vago, title is... That'd be the title, right? Yeah.
Well, first we're supposed to do names. You're getting a little ahead of...
Sorry!
Let's pause on that for a second, but that's cool.
Right.
That
Character's
you
name
want
is
to be giant.
Vago.
Yeah. Okay.
Before I preempt anyone's choices.
So, Vago.
I so very much want to go with Piccolo.
Yeah. Of course.
Yeah, nope, let's go for it. First thing that comes to your mind, I'm going with Piccolo.
Like,
Awesome.
Piccolo is a good name, but I would probably never pick it because of Dragon Ball Z.
Oh, that's exactly why I'm picking it.
Oh god, alright. I will be River.
Okay. So we have Vago, Piccolo, River. I'll be Fawn. I like Fawn. Okay. So now the next part is choosing our titles. So what are we thinking about titles? Anyone have any ideas that they're thinking?
I don't. Go ahead.
I'm swooping in from the giant of Mistwood. Yes. No. I am probably going with the fugitive of Stormguard.
Ooh.
I'm gonna go with the Crab Singer of Estalia.
Damn it. Piccolo, the Crab Singer of Estalia. Yeah, that's pretty good. Okay, I think I'm going to go with, I'm Fawn, so I think I'm the hero of Barleytown.
Nice.
So is that it? Is that all?
Yep.
Is there anything else I have to swoop in?
Nope. I think, though, the last part before we can begin is actually choosing our tokens. So, Anybody have a token that's crying out to them?
I mean, there's a one that is literally a river, so probably that one for me. But I don't,
Oh,
because
go
there's
ahead.
supposed to be like sides of a coin, right? I don't want to steal the
Yeah.
C from the crab singer.
Oh
If you're very
no,
nice about that one. All right,
no, you can have that one.
all right.
I think I kind of want the sword.
Oh, you are the hero. I'm kind of thinking the tree.
Okay.
All right, yeah, I'll go with the bird of a determinate nature.
So I have to assign you these things, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
Do do do. Let me know. You have control of the bird.
I do. I have
And,
the top bird.
and who, Leafington? Are you who's the water, or who's the road?
Yeah.
You were the road.
I think it's supposed to be a river.
There's a river and an ocean. Yeah.
Yeah. Like the bottom one is a river.
Got
Which
it.
was the one that was drawing me.
And Nick, you are the tree. You speak for the trees.
I speak for
There. I think we all have control.
Yes.
Let's see if I can give permissions to the Magus, to everybody. Controlled by all players. Awesome. Cool beans. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our tokens off the map. And we start by placing the Magus in Ravenhall. So the Magus will be the candle. And Ravenhall will be where our journey begins. So, what we're going to do is on each turn is we're going to place our character, our low character token, at one of these 4 areas underneath Ravenhall. So the Scrying Pool, the Rose Gardens, the Menagerie, and the Bridge. And we're going to make a scene in it. We're going to describe a scene, and the scene will have to use the prompt that's given underneath the actual location. Sometimes you get things that have like the plus marks, like traits. And after you describe a scene, you get to decide one of the traits there to earn, basically, for your character.
Or you can give it to another character.
Yes. So, after that is once our tokens are on the map and it goes back to being your turn again, you have the ability to move the Magus. And when you move the Magus, it goes to another spot, and we take the rest of our tokens off, and we start the cycle all over again. Okay. Any immediate questions right now?
No.
Cool. All right. Well, does anybody want to begin?
Eric, you're slated first. I believe the honor is yours.
Fair enough. Okay. I'm gonna go to the Menagerie. And so the prompt is the last time you saw real magic. So Fawn is a woman of about 19 years old, kind of like boyish hair, like tomboyish hair. Like leather armory, with maybe just a little bit of metal, like very like folk hero-esque. Not rich enough to afford the nicer things. So she's kind of dirty, and I think she's walking through. I think she's walking up into Ravenhall right now, from Barleytown, and I think near the entrance of Ravenhall are very, very old gnarled and like gnarled trees of like some sort of like oak or something like that, and this reminds her of the time when she, as a little girl, she was in the woods near Barlingtown, and she came across a, it seemed to be like a dancing image of leaves in the wind, So imagine like a very very like ballerina silhouette of like a leaping thing on the wind. So like it's fall in the woods, and she's like maybe like 8 years old, and the wind rustles through the trees and picks up some leaves, and it spirals around and turns into like a dancer, and it looks at her, and it bows to Fawn and says like "Milady" in like a very like whispery type wind voice before kind of getting carried off and dispersing itself into the woods. So that's my scene.
Interesting. I'll go next. So I'm going to begin. I'm gonna probably begin at the Rose Gardens. Let's see here. So Vago is a giant of Mistwood, and historically the giants of Mistwood have been somewhat on the small side for giants. He's a bit squatter than your average fantasy giant. He's maybe about 9 feet, maybe about 10 feet, depending. And unlike most of his tribe, Vago was born with a great deal of intelligence, and so sought out different sources of intellect, different sources of knowledge, and magic over the years to feed the mind that he was bestowed with and that he could not foster in the environment he was born into. So he goes to the Rose Gardens of Ravenhall, and the Rose Gardens are what you would probably expect from some place as stately as Ravenhall. They're filled with all sorts of roses that are seasonal and non-seasonal, some sustained through magic, such as white and blue roses, which are heavily uncommon for the region. And across many of the colonnades and the walls that line the Rose Garden are different sorts of vines that seem to creep up and spill over the walls. Probably over centuries they've grown, maybe several centuries. Something seems a bit odd about them that you would not be able to place initially, and they seem to almost have a life about them, like they grew in very determinate and specific pathways. And so Vago enters the Rose Gardens, and there he happens upon the young Fawn, who at this point is probably about 17, 19. This is a few years before the current setting.
Okay.
And he looks upon Fawn, and he has never seen a more beautiful woman in his life. And he basically drops to his knees, and he looks at Fawn, and he just stares at her in a very creepy way for a few minutes.
Yeah.
And then decides he's so enamored with her beauty that he needs to just back off, and he sprints away out of the Rose Gardens and down the steps that he had come up. And Valgo's probably a little bit on the tanner side skin-wise, and probably has somewhat black hair that he keeps fairly short-cropped, which is strange for his kind, because typically giants don't really care about grooming, and they have their hair long and beards long, and he's very kempt and very orderly.
Oh, okay.
That's my scene.
Cool. So what trait are you looking at?
Beautiful for Fawn. Plus
Okay.
beautiful, I suppose.
I can go next.
Cool.
I'm going to pick the scrying pool. So the scene kind of opens up to Piccolo kind of over this pool that is filled with this kind of silvery mirror-esque liquid, like a liquid mirror. And in its reflection, you see Piccolo, and he is a hooded man. Like, he always has this long, flowing, very kind of ornate, but very minimalist in its design. I guess that's the opposite of ornate, but like very fine looking, like fine garb, but very minimalist. And his face is like almost covered with like black tattoos, like in markings, like the majority of his face in these thick black lines.
Like Mazaragam?
Yeah, but almost even more, like it covers more of his face.
Okay. Like Southeast Asian or like that sort of like tattoo.
Yeah. and very black and thick. And underneath of it, his skin is incredibly pale. And he's a human male. And like Piccolo's just looking into this scrying pool, as is his job as the crab singer. And he thinks back to all of the times he's spent with the Magus. Magus, or we pronounce it Magus or Magus?
I say Magus.
Tomato, tomato, either or.
Yeah.
Okay. Serving the Magus, in giving him advice on how to take the less beaten path, or maybe the to sidestep around obstacles in his way, and like preparing for this journey, he knows that there's going to be a lot of obstacles and a lot of like being able to think about the other routes, to be able to kind of shuffle around the potentialities of the universe is going to be needed. And he just wants to see the Magus, like, essentially, not die.
Okay. Yeah, you want to protect him.
Yeah,
So like ward off any sort of like bad luck or anything coming our way.
right.
Got it. Okay.
Right. I suppose I will. Though I can go to the same place, I think I want to go to the bridge.
Okay.
So, in the bridge, we're setting out, ready to leave. We have like a wagon with like a canvas top and stuff in it, so we can kind of hide from bad weather if we have to. It's like 2 horses in front of it, and there's this moat around Ravenhall that we're crossing, and River is looking over the edge, and he sees his reflection, and then something gets knocked in the water, or like a fish splashes in the water and it makes a ripple, and it takes him back to another time when he looked into another river, and you see him with like longer hair, and like he looks backwards and panicked, and like he's running from something, and you hear like guards shouting like, "Hey, stop!" And then we see River again with the longer hair coming over at Ravenhall, being like sunken face. He looks like super malnourished, and pleads the wizard or the Magus for to take him in, to protect him, to let him live. And he does. And that's why they're here now. And then he looks at the Magus. It's like, well, and
What
he
does
wants
the
to
Magus
repay
look like?
him. God, I just can't get around him looking like Gandalf.
Okay.
So like pointy hat, like wide brim pointy hat, like he has a long ass beard. He wears say he wears red like on his robes, but his hat, like he goes crazy. He's like the Queen of England, right? Like he has the craziest hats. But this time he has like a traditional Magus hat that he has chosen for the start of the journey.
Okay.
And maybe he calls like, "River, let's go." Like hop on the back of the wagon. Spryly. And that's a bridge.
Okay. I think I'm going to move my character to the bridge. and make a scene there as well. Um, so we're crossing it's probably like the same bridge that we're on. I imagine like a little tiny, like humble stone bridge, going over what is now like it is a river, but it's incredibly tame. It's basically a creek, um, and you see, or and Fawn kind of sees in her own mind's eye, um, like the nights when she actually became like the hero of Barleytown, and she like gets a flashback, and it looks to be like a dark, like gray black sky, over always overcast, nothing, no vegetation anywhere. It's all just like brown mud and earth, and just dead trees. And in the distance you hear the sounds of men shouting and yelling, and the clamoring of metal. And for a
Is it
moment, but
like a war? Like they're fighting?
yeah, um, the scope, like the scale of the battle, can't be really seen from her perspective.
Okay.
But like on this bridge, you can see like dangling off the side of it are like corpses of slain people, um, mostly enemies. They look to be like some sort of like robbers or brigands, and she and like within like another split second, she like shakes her head, and she's back to where she was, crossing this bridge on like a beautiful late spring day, with you guys in the Magus.
Out of curiosity, are the fields normally desiccated like that, or was that the sign of something else that had happened?
No, that was a sign of something else that happened.
I think I'll move myself to the bridge as well.
Yeah,
So-
bridge party.
Bridge party. So Vago's kind of slumped in a very awkward position, huddled up in the base of the carriage because he has virtually no room because he's crammed in with all the crap that everyone's storing while everyone's sitting out on the back. And so he kind of just thumbs over some of the objects that are, littered throughout the mass of packages and goods and the things that people had packed with them. And he notices a small instrument, kind of like a harp, very, very, very tiny little thing for him. And he reaches out and he kind of picks it up with his hand, and it's basically fits into his palm. And he kind of just looks over it for a second, and he hears a little splash in the river. And he thinks back to a time in his own village where he had seen a very similar instrument, much larger, much grander, that required several giants to play it at once. It was basically like a giant, like bass, like string bass. And he thinks back to some of the times where he would go dancing down by the river with his friends, and he wouldn't really feel much of anything. He was just doing it because it was the thing to do. Like, he would go down there and frolic with everyone else and listen to the music and enjoy the food. But what he really felt was just emptiness and detachment from what was going on, because he didn't feel like he belonged, and he had been told so many times that he didn't belong. And he feels very pained by this. And he kind of just thumbs his finger over the strings of the little harp and plays a sad little tune that he can remember from those times.
Ooh. It's a musician.
Yeah. Alright, well, I'm going to join the bridge party. And I think, as we're on the wagon, Piccolo is kind of sitting back, and he's probably listening to the tune that's being plucked. And that's when he kind of glances down at this strangely, memory-inducing river. And he kind of, he can just barely make out, like his face and the hood he wears. And as the water kind of flows, you see his face change, and he no longer has the tattoos. He's now like a much younger boy, like completely pale skin, and like wearing like essentially I'm thinking like a loincloth esque thing, but kind of looks like the sumo underwear, but
Okay. Yeah.
yeah, just something very simple, and like pale white, like the guys from Mad Max Fury Road, like that white. And he's kind of like you hear all of these muffled voices as he's kind of looking up, and he's in Ravenhall, like in these big, overwhelming halls. He's never been in some place that was as big as this. And he's looking at the Magus, who looks like kind of like just that, like Sir Ian McClellan, with like a slight beard, like much younger Magus, and he's wearing this like fantastical hat, and is like laughing at some joke that Piccolo's father has made, and it's like only then that he like it dawns on him that his father is giving him to the Magus, and like he starts to panic. He starts to like want to get closer to his father, but that's when the Magus like kneels down, and with like just this like a smile that could like stop wars, like kind of just reaches out and just like pats Piccolo's head, and like and just tells him it's going to be okay, and like Piccolo believes it. Piccolo like just instantly like knows that this man is going to take care of him, that it's like it is going to be okay. Like the Magus isn't trying to soothe him. The Magus has just spoken truth. Yeah.
Wow.
How long ago about was this? If you'd have to put a rough time frame on it.
I would say probably like 40 years ago.
Okay.
Like, Piccolo was probably around 7 or 8. Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna move the Magus. Move him forward to Oak Hills.
Alright.
Which means I get to make a scene involving the Magus.
And I'll play after you, but that's okay.
What?
Never mind.
Is it? Oh, wait, is it your turn?
Just do. I think it's my turn, but you can play. I
Oh
was,
no! I jumped the
it's
gun.
fine.
I'm used to playing on the wrong. No. It's absolutely your turn, man. I jumped the gun. My B.
So the Magus moves Oak Hills anyway. And it's like it's the end of summer. The hills full of oak are just a sea of red and yellow and brown. There's a road that's not like paved, but it's traveled well enough that it's a solid road. And the Magus is like looking out the front of the cart. Fawn is driving the cart. It's her turn, and River is sitting with her up front. Vago and Piccolo are sitting in the cart as we're driving along, and we're moving through the rolling oak hills that surround Ravenhall. And there's like a flock of crows that fly over. And that's our arrival in Oak Hills.
Okay. I'm gonna go to John Harper's Road because now it's my turn.
Road in the dark.
So, we're going through. It's still like maybe midday or maybe early afternoon, and we just crest one of like the highest hills in Oak Hills, and it gives us like an amazing, brilliant perspective of just all the varying colors and trees, and for miles and miles and miles, it's just this beautiful forested hills, and then like woven in almost like a checkered pattern between all of these like small little forests are like for pastures or farmlands or fields, and you can see tiny little like smoke uh, billowing from these little dots in the distance, and I think Fawn would be talking to River while Harper while Fawn's on the maintaining the wagon.
Sure.
So so Fawn looks to River and says, you know, it's gonna be so weird after we get to Barleytown. I don't know when I'm gonna see my parents again. Um,
Uh,
what were your
uh,
parents like?
God. All right. River says, uh, they were they were all right, I guess. They may do. I haven't seen them in a really long time.
Sure. But what is the
It's okay.
what is the tone of
Sorry.
your voice when you're saying that? Are you like deliberately being vague?
Yeah, yeah, she kind of is.
Okay, yeah. Okay. So
Uh,
that's
but then or he puts his hand on her shoulder and he's like, "It's okay. You'll get used to it, missing them."
your attempts to comfort her don't really. I mean, it's obviously she recognizes the goodwill and she smiles, but it's like a kind of a wry smile, knowing that she still has to swallow this hard pill in the next couple weeks after Barleytown. Um, and I think we look down, and I think sh- I think Fawn kind of unbuttons the top part of like her armor, or like can reach down underneath her plate, and she pulls out a necklace that was kind of like hidden underneath her leathers and stuff like that, and it has a little it has a locket, and it kind of looks like the symbol of that is actually her symbol in the game. So like a circle with a little bit like rays of sun, and inside the locket is a like a weird like kind of crudely drawn like picture of her, and she says like in like some sort of like ink, you know what I mean, like a parchment and ink kind of like pressed into this, and I think she shows it to you and says like my youngest sister Valia made this for me after the battles of Swine Hill, um, and she calls me the hero of Barleytown. And well, I think we might end the scene there.
Okay.
Let's see.
So I know that was kind of a long scene.
That's fine. I think I'm gonna go to by firelight. So presumably after the I keep wanting to say caravan. The carriage has stopped and everyone's kind of unpacked. So of course, Vago, being the largest, has been dispatched to go pick up the firewood and bring it back, and he does so after several hours descending into the darkness of the oak forest as summer is starting to come to a close and the light is constantly getting lesser and lesser every day.
Mm-hmm.
And he happens to kind of pass by a conversation that's going on between the Magus and River, and he catches a few whispers between them and a few little giggles, which he assumes are some kind of inside joke between the two, and he kind of just shrugs it off and continues about his way. And he sets the firewood down and he lights it, and immediately fire starts to dance up in the pit, and it seems to project light over all the trees that are surrounding the clearing they've stopped in. And he kind of sits down and he pulls a small box out of his pants pockets, and he's fairly well dressed by this point. He tends to dress as humans would, except he's gotten all of his clothes custom tailored for himself because he rolls like that.
Yeah.
And he happens to kind of open the little box just very slightly, and it's a very kind of crude box. It looks very much like something very fumbly large hands would have crafted. And there's no kind of lining to the inside. It's just a flat, square wooden box. And he opens it up, and inside is a tiny little leaf, which is a very odd color. It's a strange purplish color. And to him, and to anyone who would be looking at it, it's very obviously not a natural thing. It's very unnatural looking. It looks like it's the product of some kind of magic or some kind of sorcery or some kind of tampering. And he kind of plucks the leaf up by its what would you call that? The stem?
Yeah.
Yeah. He plucks the leaf up by the stem, and he kind of like admires it, not fully removing it from the box, and he turns it over and he turns it back. And he notices that, even after all these years, and he kind of remarks to himself, even after all these years, you still haven't withered, my old friend. And then he puts it back down and he closes the box and he puts it away. And then he casts a glance over to the Magus, who has started to retire to the magical tent that he's produced out of nowhere, through magic, of course. And he notices that outside of it, there is a candle. And strangely, there's actually a series of candles, but one of them is lit. And strangely, the candle seems to be burning down very, very quickly.
Hmm.
All right. I think I'm gonna go to at dawn. And so we kind of open up. Like I think everyone is kind of breaking their fast, with the exception of Piccolo, who is kind of off the side of the camp, and the camera kind of goes the scene kind of goes around his shoulder to see what he's looking at, and in kind of the dirt, he's carved quite deep. The symbol Vegvizir, which I'm apologizing if I'm mispronouncing it, but I will link in chat. He's carved this. And he's kind of staring at it, and he's just kind of very pensive, and like you see his hand kind of flash, like as he throws something, and you can't quite catch what he's thrown until it hits the symbol. And what you see is a piece of barley, and that is like covered in frost, like this like quickly melting, like it's covered in it, like it's almost, the barley is white with frost, and it's quickly melting, and he stares at it for a long time before like his head just kind of shoots up in like a eureka moment almost, and then like realizing that he's just made like an emotional expression, he kind of picks himself up very like stoically, and kind of brushes his legs off, and walks into the tent of the Magus.
Great.
All right. Is my token gone? It's over there. All right. So I will go. God. Also at dawn.
Yeah, that's a good prompt.
It is a good prompt. I like how these first couple are like setting up things.
Character building.
But yeah, it's at dawn. and like the cards being like loaded up and stuff. Like the tents being packed, and you know, we hear the Magus calling like, "River, come on!" And then like you hear like, "I'll be there in a minute," and it's you see River like behind a tree, and she has her shirt off, and she's like wrapping her breasts with like a bandage so they don't show as much, and then puts on her normal like guy looking clothes, and meets back up with everyone.
Hmm.
And that's it.
Okay. I think
Short and sweet.
all right. I think I'm gonna move the Magus.
All right.
I'm gonna move him to Barleytown. So have to make a scene of the Magus and the hospitality of the Barley Lord. The Barley Lord. So our wagon. Well, we've been on the road for at least a week now, and our wagon has been remarkably pristine the entire time. Not a single thing is broken. Not a single string has come unknotted. It has all been smooth sailing from Ravenhall to Barleytown. As we approach the actual town proper, the sort of like provinces or like the little like outskirts and fringe little areas of Barleytown, we soon get kind of flocked by children, coming out holding little things of barley, like in their hands, like waving it, like you would like a fan kind of, like one of those like little wavy clapper things that you have at like events or whatever. They just like they're holding like barley and like crossing it and shaking it and waving it at everyone as we come into town. And this proceeds and actually gets multiplied as the closer we get to actually the town proper, as more like older gentlemen and older women start coming out to see what all the commotion's about, and we see it, and you hear whispers through the crowds being like, "It's the Magus. He's leaving us."
Do older people do the same with the barley, or is it like a kid's thing?
Oh no,
Just in their exuberance, they do that.
No, it's a kid's thing. But I mean, the parents. It's clearly some sort of like ritual that the town has, but just the parents don't really partake in it. But they can't help but sort of have a smile on their face seeing the Magus again, even if they know it means that the Magus leaving us, Barleytown, the fate of Barleytown is unknown, since they can't rely on Ravenhall's magic in a great time of need. So they're trying to be a little bit stoic, but they understand why this mission has to actually happen. So finally we get to like the gates of the main manor, and a portly man, very jovial, wearing some very, very fine dressed garbs, probably maybe played by like John Goodman, like, "Hello, welcome to Barleytown. Oh, please, we have food waiting in the halls. Lovely forms of pork, every type as you can imagine. The ravens arrived only 4 days ago, and since then our chefs have been preparing night and day. Come, let's feast." And people are cheering and stuff, and we are welcomed and ushered into the Barley Lord's keep. So that's the scene.
Let me see. Actually, do you mind if I cede my turn? Because I'm still kind of thinking about what I want to do.
Sure. As long as you go before someone else does. I mean, as long as you go before someone else goes again.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So, who's next? I think Robert is? Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I'm going to go to the farmer's market with probably the Magus, as he's the one who kind of handles the money, I'd imagine.
Yeah.
And who would like to play the Magus?
Someone else like to play
Uh,
Magus?
Go for it, Eric.
Okay.
All right. So, as as we're kind of walking through, like we're getting into the farmer's market, and like I feel like Piccolo is kind of putting on a very like he looks incredibly foreign. It is a little bit intimidating, and so like he's not being completely standoffish, but he's doing a little bit like the Magus and I are on business. Do not bother us, kind of thing.
Yeah. But at the same time, for the Magus being who he is, um, he can't help but have people try to come up to him, like like people hoarding children and being like, bless my kid, give him luck, or like here's or some vendors would be like, here's some fine fruit, please, it would be an honor for you to have it, and he constantly has to be like, no, I'm sorry, we're on business, like we need some very specific things, like thank you, you're so kind, and it constantly has to like persuade, in an almost like juxtaposing manner.
Right.
Uh,
Like so it's almost like it would have just been fine if we had like it takes just as much time.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And I think that like this is sort of a game between Piccolo and the Magus.
Okay.
Like they've kind of done this enough. Like I mean the Magus has known Piccolo since he was so very young, and that like so like Magus is always very like serious and kind of stuff, and like the Magus has always been kind of trying to like show him the ways of being kind of more
May I add a detail?
yeah.
We probably speak a like an ancient arcane language or something like that, and like a nickname, like between each other. So like if you try to like run off or something like that, I like will call you in that language or whatever, and sort of like
Right.
but it's really used mostly for like teaching and like a mentor student, or you know what I mean, like
Right.
teacher student, like father son, like what I mean.
Right, yeah, so it's like it's a
Style
very
dynamic.
very kind of diminutive
Yeah.
nickname.
Yeah. So like yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and so Piccolo is essentially, as he's trying to keep the Magus's attention, that like that yeah, Sir Magus, I've seen us cross the mountains. We must buy the proper gear. We must be prepared to going to the mountains. That is what the signs have shown me. Like we need these things, please.
In due time, all things will get where they need to be in due time. We are ahead of schedule, and
Please,
maybe
please,
and you
sir.
interrupt him.
Yeah, like kind of like, please, Sir Magus. Like we need. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but this is incredibly important. The signs have not done me wrong. They have not shown us wrong. I worry that if we do not prepare for this, folly will be sure to come.
I think recognizing your distress, I think he kind of like approaches you and is like, come here quick, and he brings in and he's like, you're right, Piccolo, and it's like, you're right, my Piccolo. We will be prepared, but what's more important is that we should prepare our hearts in a very like
Yeah.
Jedi.
Right, and I think that like Magus has heard this a million times before,
Yeah.
and like I think we'll end the scene with Magus like trying not to like all of the years of self control and like everything like holding back the like what the fuck are you talking about?
It's like a Mr. Miyagi kind of thing.
Right, like you are the Magus, like
Yeah, he has a very like relax, like he knows the stakes, right? And
right.
like he's very like almost at the like accepting kind of
Yeah,
thing of it.
yeah, yeah. Like he knows how big the stakes are, so he needs not worry about them.
Yeah,
He knows exactly how big they are.
absolutely.
Right, but it's just like Piccolo, who is still very young in that regard, is
Hmm.
just like still fighting the urge to be like. He doesn't like. He every so often gets that doubt, and like, is this man insane, or is he the wisest person I've ever met?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. I think that Magus has that sort of like just insane intellect. He's like a guru, right? It's just like
Right.
I don't. Yeah.
Yeah.
Really
Gandalf. His
cool.
plan is not known.
Yeah.
I have a scene I want to do unless Leadington you wanted to go, or if Nick
Uh,
if something came to you.
No, I have a thing now.
Okay.
I'll go if Leafyton doesn't.
Yeah.
Um,
then
Yeah.
you
I'll
can
hold
go.
off for a second.
um, so I want to stage mine at the old abbey.
Damn it. That's where I'm gonna go.
Well, you still go.
Yeah.
So the Abbey of Barleytown.
But now it's gonna seem like I cheated and stealing from you.
Everyone goes to the Abbey at the same time. It's like,
Alright.
Just
you're
don't
here,
follow in the
dude.
confessional immediately behind me. You might hear some suspect things you don't want to hear. Um, so I imagine the old Abbey of Barleytown is probably in fairly good condition. It seems like the kind of town that would have a pretty good use for religion and would probably stake themselves very strongly around it. So the
Mhm.
Abbey's a very pristine white sort of building, probably built up with marble or some sort of very high quality rock or stone.
Yeah.
And so Vago kind of ducks under the made for humans doorway that leads into the Abbey and kind of hunches his way through the halls and kind of just avoids the odd glances that he gets from the people who kind of like either point and laugh or they just kind of stare at him in awe or some kind of shelter their children like you don't need to see the giant. And he strolls over to a small confessional that's again obviously built for humans.
Way too small for him.
Way too small. So
Yeah.
he initially opens the door to the confessional and he kind of pokes his head in and he's like, "Father, are you there?" And of course the priest responds, "I am, my child." And he's like, "This will do." And he kind of just squeezes the barest amount of his shoulders into the confessional and he's kind of just hunched up in there.
Your legs are sticking out to everywhere.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's basically
Right
on his
there.
hands and knees, and like half of him is sticking into the confessional. And he turns his head to the little confessional window thing, and he's like, "Forgive me, Father, for I have sinned," as one does. And the priest, of course, asks him why, and then Vago kind of runs his fingers over the carpet underneath of him, kind of debating, very hesitant of whether or not he wants to actually get this off of his chest. And he kind of leans his weight forward and takes a deep breath and he lets it out and he's like, uh, "Do you remember the battle at Swine Hill?" And of course, the priest says, "Yes, I'm very familiar with that." And Vago kind of just takes another deep breath and he's like, "I, I was there, and I did not help the innocent when I could have." And there's kind of a moment of silence between him and the priest, and the priest, of course, says, "Well, do you regret that?" And of course, Vago goes, "Yes, and I do not know if I can be forgiven for it." And the priest turns back to him and he says, "Do you think you should be forgiven for it?" And Vago kind of, again, says, "I do not believe I should." Uh, and the priest pauses for a moment and kind of lets this sink in. And he nods to himself, and then he's just like, "Well, I think The Lord's judgment is far more important than what you have deemed for yourself. You should probably take that with you when you leave, and know with a more free conscience that even if you did not do what you could have, you at least feel guilt. The Lord accepts that. And Vago kind of thinks over these words, and they don't really fill him with any less regret or remorse for not helping the innocent. And he kind of just sits there for a moment and waits to see if the priest bothers to say anything else to him. And after a really, really long, awkward silence, he kind of just politely thanks the priest, even though he hasn't really gotten anything out of the interaction. And he pulls himself back out through a lot of effort, kind of stretching the boards as he does, so the door's never going to fit properly again. And he catches sight of Fawn right before the scene ends.
Oh. Hey. Hi, hi, Vago. I'm, like, looking up at you.
Yeah.
Like,
Vago kind of like politely waves his hand a little bit and sort of just starts walking off like he's going to check out the rest of the church. For
sure. Like that. What you do when you cross paths with someone who's
yeah,
leaving
like
the
you
bathroom.
don't want to leave because it looks like you left because they just entered. So he just kind
Yeah.
of like wanders off to wait until she's doing something else.
Yeah. Okay.
And his cheeks are very red by this point.
Of course. All right. I'm going to go to the Abbey. Is it alright if I go?
Yeah.
Yeah, go for it.
All
Go
right.
for
I'm gonna go to the Abbey, and I want someone actually to play the priest in this. Somebody want to volunteer to play the actual father?
Sure, I'll play the priest.
Okay. So the scene starts with we fade in to the sounds of a clicking, and a shadow moving, and like the door securing inside a confessional.
Yeah.
And inside we have Fawn, sitting like prostrate, like with hands praying kind of thing, like head down, and just does like forgive me, Father, for I've sinned. And the father goes, Harp, what could it be that what would be the reason for you to be here? Tell what's on your mind. Or wait, why am I playing your character?
There you are.
I'm so sorry.
Tell me what vexes you, my child.
Well, it's the title. It's the expectations. And she says that with like a quiver in her voice. She mentions that I'm not the hero everyone thinks I am.
Why do you say that?
I think the better way of describing it would be the screen kind of like hazes into another flashback, and we're at a battle. Maybe we're at Swine Hill again, and around a bridge. So kind of like back to the one of the first scenes with the bridge. There's a similar looking bridge. It's very like desolate all around, and there's some like destroyed wagons and people who are killed. And you hear the sounds of people running over the bridge, being like, "Search for more survivors." We think one of them, like more ran off, and you look underneath the bridge, and like the camera pans underneath the bridge, and you see like Fawn like on the edge of the bridge, like like hiding and not moving.
Yeah.
And she says, I couldn't save anybody. I didn't even try.
So the father says, but you were there, were you not?
It's like, I was, but oh God, like, My sister, like, what can my Valia thinks so highly of me? She thought that I drove them off with my sword, but I hid. I hid like a kid. And now the Magus chose me to be to guide him to Umbra. What do I know? All I know is how to run. Help me.
So the priest says, do you think the Magus chose you for the things you did?
I don't know
For
why
the
he
things you
chose me.
will do?
I don't know. I'm just so afraid of that. In if I ever was put in another spot like that, I would run again. How do you know? How do you know when you're strong and when you're brave? Because I don't. I don't know, Father. What do I do?
And he tells you that it's okay to be afraid.
Mm.
If we were never afraid, we would walk off a cliff or run into the fire, and we would get hurt or die. Just because we get afraid doesn't mean we're not heroes. It just means we have some sense. And he like kind of chuckles.
What should I tell my sister? I'm expected for dinner after this. What should I tell my family?
You tell them what's in your heart. That's what family is for.
If you say so, Father. And I think that'll be the scene. Boom! Okay, I think we have time for one more scene before we go to our first break.
Alright. So I will go to Matilda's farm.
Mm-hmm.
Where I was like buying some food off her. Or River was buying some food off her. And like they were kind of talking like, oh, you're with the Magus, and that's really cool. And then the conversation turns, and it's like, so where are you going? Like, yeah, we're going east. And she gets this like grim look on her face, and it's like, east, that's no good. It's like, you know, why is east not good? I'm from the east. I'm good. With like some wavering in the voice that's kind of unsure. But she's like, no, they're all liars and thieves, and you can't trust any one of them. Here, let me get something for you. My husband, he left it after Swine Hill, and he didn't come back. And like, she gets like busy like looking through stuff while she like suppresses her feelings of grief over her dead husband, and she comes back with this sword, and it's like, here, take this sword. Don't trust anyone in the East.
What does the sword look like? Does it have any distinguishing markings, or is it just like a plain old sword?
I think it's like kind of old and ratty. Like they just got it from the war, and like it hasn't been touched since. And or the battle or whatever. And it just hasn't been touched since. It's just been wrapped up and kept. I think if you were to show it to people who fought with him, then maybe they would recognize it. But to River, it just looks like a kind of old sword. It wasn't kept particularly well. It's not particularly fancy. It seems plain enough. There's a leather-bound scabbard that comes with it, and yeah.
Okay.
And she like gets it. River gets it in her hands, and she's like, "But I can't. Like, I'm not a sword fighter. It's like, doesn't matter. You stick him with the pointy end. And
Nice.
I remember it's just like, well, okay, well, it has like a sack of food with her and like gets that sword on top. It's like, well, all right. And then Matilda like ushers her out because she's busy. And River's like, what the hell? And she has a sword now.
Oh, so now she has her father, or Matilda's husband's sword.
Yes.
Awesome. Cool. So it is 10:12, which means we're ready for our first break. So we'll be back in about 5 minutes. So 10:17, I'll be going back for the hour 2 of episode 13's Once Upon a Game, where we're playing Fall of